As they approached the compound, Sarah raised her fist, signaling a halt. Through her night vision goggles, she could see 2 guards standing near the main entrance, their cigarettes glowing like tiny beacons in the darkness. "Rodriguez, Thompson, take the guards on my mark," she whispered into her radio. "Torres, you're with me. We're going for the west wall where the thermal imaging showed the heat signatures we think are civilians." Her heart pounded as she counted down. 3, 2, 1, mark. The guards were neutralized silently, professionally. No shots fired, no alarms raised. Sarah's team moved into position, and she felt the familiar calm that came with action after planning. This was the moment when everything either fell into place or fell apart. They breached the west wall and found themselves in a small courtyard. The heat signatures had been accurate. 3 women and 4 children huddled in a corner room, their eyes wide with terror as armed soldiers appeared. Sarah removed her helmet, letting them see her face. "We're Americans," she said in practice Pashto. "We're here to help you. Stay quiet and stay together." The oldest woman, her face lined with years of hardship, grabbed Sarah's arm. "Hakim is in the main house with 5 men. They have weapons everywhere. You should leave while you can." "We're not leaving without him," Sarah replied gently but firmly. "Get these people to the extraction point," she told Torres. "The rest of us are finishing this." The main house was a fortress within a fortress, but Sarah had planned for this. They moved through the compound using the shadows and their knowledge of the layout. When they reached Hakim's location, she could hear voices inside, confident and careless. These men thought themselves beyond reach, beyond justice. The breach was swift and decisive. Flashbangs disoriented the occupants just long enough for Sarah's team to gain control. When the smoke cleared, Rashid Hakim found himself face down on the ground, hands secured behind his back, staring up at the woman who had promised her dying friend that justice would be served. "You have no authority here." Hakim spat in English, his arrogance still intact despite his situation. Sarah knelt beside him, her voice cold and precise. Marcus Webb had 3 daughters. The village elder you executed last month had 6 grandchildren. The aid workers you ambushed were trying to bring medicine to people. I have all the authority I need. She stood and nodded to Rodriguez. "Get him ready for transport. Make sure he is comfortable enough to face trial and answer for everything." As dawn broke over the mountains, Sarah watched the helicopters arrive to extract her team, the civilians they'd rescued, and the prisoner who would finally face justice. She thought about Marcus, about the promise she'd made, and about the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge was chaos, born of pain and leading to more pain. Justice was something else entirely. It required patience, planning, and the courage to do things the right way even when the easy way beckoned. Back at base, as she filed a report, Sarah allowed herself one moment of emotion. She touched the dog tags that hung around her neck alongside her own, Marcus's tags, carried as a reminder of what they were fighting for. "Promise kept," she whispered to the memory of her friend. "Promise kept." The winter wind cut through the Afghan mountains like a blade, carrying with it the weight of promises made in blood. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the forward operating base, her eyes fixed on the distant ridgeline where the last light of day painted the snow-covered peaks in shades of amber and crimson. 3 months had passed since that terrible night. 3 months since she had knelt beside her dying friend and heard Lieutenant Marcus Webb whisper his final words. "Find them. Sarah, promise me you'll find them." She had promised, and Sarah Chen never broke her promises. The intelligence reports lay spread across the table in the operations tent, each page a piece of the puzzle she had been assembling since that dark February morning. It was now 11:30 p.m., and the base was settling into its nighttime rhythm. But Sarah's work was far from over. Her team of 6 soldiers sat around her, their faces warm but determined. They had volunteered for this mission without hesitation, each one of them having served with Marcus at some point in their careers. He had been more than a commanding officer. He had been a mentor, a friend, a man who believed in protecting the innocent above all else. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. "The target is here," Sarah said, pointing to a compound nestled in a valley between 2 mountain ranges. "Our source confirms that Rashid Hakim has been using this location for the past 2 weeks. He moves every month, but this time we have something he doesn't know about." She pulled out a small device no bigger than a coin. One of his own men placed a tracker in his vehicle. Turns out not everyone appreciates a commander who uses children as shields and executes village elders for refusing to cooperate. Sergeant James Rodriguez leaned forward, his dark eyes reflecting the lamplight. "What's the timeline, Captain?" "We move at 0300 hours, Sarah replied. "The drone surveillance shows minimal security between 2 and 4 a.m. They are confident, maybe too confident. Hakeem thinks is untouchable out here." Her voice carried an edge that made everyone in the tent understand this was personal, yet professional. This wasn't about revenge born of rage. This was about justice delivered with surgical precision. The young communications specialist, Private Emma Torres, spoke up nervously. Intelligence suggests there might be civilians in the compound. Hakeem's known for keeping families there as human shields." Sarah met her eyes with a steady gaze. "Which is exactly why we're doing this the hard way instead of calling in an airstrike. We go in quiet. We extract any civilians first, and then we ensure Hakeem answers for every life is destroyed. Marcus would never forgive us if we became like the enemy to defeat the enemy." The team spent the next 3 hours preparing their gear, checking weapons, reviewing the plan from every angle. Sarah moved among them, offering quiet words of encouragement, making small adjustments to the strategy based on their input. Leadership, Marcus had once told her, wasn't about having all the answers. It was about knowing when to listen and having the courage to make the hard calls when the moment demanded it. At 2:45 a.m., they loaded into 2 armored vehicles and began the treacherous drive toward the target. The mountain roads were barely more than paths, carved by decades of conflict and necessity. Sarah rode in the lead vehicle, her mind running through every possible scenario. What if the intelligence was wrong? What if Hakeem had already moved? What if they walked into an ambush? She pushed the doubts aside. Doubt was a luxury she couldn't afford, not when 6 soldiers were trusting her with their lives. They abandoned the vehicles a kilometer from the compound and proceeded on foot through the darkness. The moon was a thin crescent, providing just enough light to navigate by but not enough to expose them. Sarah had memorized every detail of the terrain, every rock formation and gully that might provide cover. The team moved like shadows, their training evident in every silent step.